During his speech in North Carolina yesterday, Donald Trump made several false claims about the economy and what he accomplished during his time in office. Joining us now with a fact check, former Treasury official, Morning Joe economic analyst Steve Ratner. Steve, at the Southwest Wall, great to see you. Let's dive right in. First up, here is what Donald Trump said yesterday about the economy during his administration.
We had the strongest economy in history. There's never been a country that had an economy like us. I gave Harris and Biden an economic miracle, and they quickly turned it into an economic nightmare.
See, this is an oft-repeated claim by Donald Trump that he had the strongest economy of all time, and now he's adding he handed Joe Biden an economic miracle. What's the truth about that?
Not only did he not have the strongest economy of all time, he didn't even have the strongest economy of the last two presidents, himself and Joe Biden. And so let's take a look at some of the facts here. First, the best measure of an economy is its growth rate. GDP growth rate. And so when you compare the two, and I have adjusted out COVID in fairness to both presidents, although you see it doesn't actually change the picture, Trump grew his economy at a rate of about 2.6% a year, which is actually not a bad rate, and that excludes COVID. Biden grew his economy, has grown so far his economy at 3.5% a year. If you take out the effects of COVID, the disparity is even greater. So I've done this as honestly as I can do, and no matter how you do it, it doesn't come out in Trump's favor, even against Biden, let alone against 5,000 years of other economies around the world. Secondly, you can look at jobs. That's a very important thing in an economy, obviously, to Americans. And again, I've adjusted out the effects of COVID. 182,000 jobs on average a month created by Trump. 271,000 jobs on average created by Biden. Again, if you take out COVID, the disparity is far greater. So that is one of his most preposterous claims.
Yeah, the numbers don't lie, and he has made that point. We were cooking along, and then COVID came, and that's not my fault. We can talk about that more, of how he handled COVID. But even adjusted for COVID, you're saying Joe Biden has had the better economy. All right, let's move on to energy. This is former President Trump talking yesterday about American oil production and energy independence.
We were energy independent 4 years ago. Think of it. Today, we're getting energy from Venezuela in the form of tar.
Steve, what do the numbers show?
Well, first of all, we were never energy independent under Donald Trump. In fact, we really haven't been energy independent going back until sometime before 1950. You can see that the amount of oil imports that we had during Trump did, in fact, decline. This is part of a long progression that goes back to the mid-2000s. It's nothing that he particularly did. It continued under Biden, and lo and behold, the first time we have been energy independent as it applies to oil was in 2023 under Biden's presidency, when we actually exported a bit more oil than we imported. Now, Trump is hung up on Venezuela. I'm not exactly sure why. He usually likes dictators. In this case, he seems to not like it as much. It is a fact, as Trump said, that Venezuelan oil is bad oil. It's very heavy. It's very polluting. But look what happened to Venezuelan oil imports over the last 7.5 years. Under Trump, we averaged 10.3 million barrels of Venezuelan oil a day coming into this country. Under Biden, we're down to 1.7 million barrels a day of Venezuelan oil. So the idea that somehow Biden is the one who brought in all this Venezuelan oil is absolutely directly contradicted by the numbers.
As is often the case, exactly the opposite is true of what Donald Trump says. In fact, we are not running on Venezuelan tar. Okay, let's talk about migrant crime. Donald Trump yesterday in North Carolina went on a tangent about what he claims is a surge in migrant crime. Here's what he said.
They all said I was wrong when I said that migrant crime will reach epidemic proportions. And now it's much worse than that. It's a lot worse than epidemic proportions. It's beyond control. We have a new category of crime. It's called migrant crime. And I think it's going to end up being the worst category of all.
All right, Steve, what does the data show?
Well, you know, it was supposed to be an economic speech, but he can't help himself, and he has to get off into things like migrants and immigration and the border and crime and all that kind of stuff. But once again, the facts are not quite what he said. First, let's just talk about crime in general. He likes to think the country's in the middle of some crime wave. That is actually not true. Violent crime per 100,000 people has dropped 26% under Joe Biden, from an average of 398 per 100,000 people down to 294. What is even more amazing is that it, in fact, ended Trump's administration slightly higher than when it began. or certainly at best, most favorably, you can't see any improvement under Trump's administration. All the improvement has been under the Biden administration.